Have you ever been pulled into a connection so powerful that it disrupts your sense of normality? One that doesn't simply stir desire, but shakes your identity, your memories, and your understanding of love itself. Perhaps this person appeared suddenly, igniting every layer of your being, physical, emotional, spiritual, yet leaving you unable to explain why it feels so consuming. The intensity confuses you. It lingers in silence. It follows you into dreams and moments of stillness. You may wonder whether you're losing control, imagining meaning where there is none, or feeling something no one else seems to understand. That uncertainty can feel isolating, even unsettling, because this connection does not behave like ordinary attraction. It feels ancient, intentional, alive. In today's exploration, we will bring language to what has felt impossible to name. We will move beyond surface explanations and into the hidden mechanics of twin flame intimacy. Why this bond defies logic, why longing feels both sacred and overwhelming, and why physical and energetic closeness awakens memories that do not belong to this lifetime alone. You will begin to understand why this connection feels purposeful rather than accidental, why desire carries emotional and spiritual weight, and why resisting it often creates more confusion instead of clarity. This video is not about fantasy or obsession. It is about recognition of patterns, energy, and soul-level remembrance that have been misunderstood for far too long. By the end of this journey, you will no longer feel lost inside the intensity of what you're experiencing. You will feel seen. What once felt overwhelming will begin to feel meaningful. What felt destabilizing will gain structure and grounding. Instead of questioning your sanity or suppressing your truth, you will recognize this moment for what it is: a threshold, a crossing point between who you were and who you are becoming. This understanding does not amplify confusion, it dissolves it. And if you stay with me until the end, you may realize that this connection did not arrive to disrupt your life, but to awaken a part of you that was always waiting to remember. Section 1. The overwhelming energy surge, a love that feels electric. When twin flames meet at the deepest level of recognition, the experience moves far beyond physical attraction or emotional chemistry. What unfolds is a powerful energetic convergence, an unmistakable surge that courses through the nervous system and reaches into the oldest layers of the psyche. As a psychologist observing this phenomenon through both clinical insight and spiritual understanding, I can say this is not imagination, nor is it fantasy. It is the activation of something profoundly real and deeply stored within the human soul. Many individuals describe this moment as if a bolt of lightning has struck from within. Breath shortens, the body tingles, and awareness expands in a way that feels both overwhelming and clarifying. Others report waves of intense sensation moving through the body, warmth, vibration, or bliss so strong that ordinary perceptions of time, space, and identity temporarily dissolve. In these moments, the mind falls silent. You are no longer thinking your way through the experience. You are inside it, fully awake, fully present, and acutely alive. At the core of this energetic surge is the awakening of the Kundalini, the primal life force, often described as lying dormant at the base of the spine. When a true soul-level union occurs, this energy does not rise by force or desire, it rises by recognition. The body responds instinctively, allowing the energy to travel upward through the energetic centers, activating layers of awareness that may have remained untouched for a lifetime. This is not mere passion or emotional intensity. It is a process of inner evolution, where the psyche and nervous system are recalibrated by truth. As this energy ascends, the mind may open to imagery and impressions that feel ancient yet familiar. Some experience spontaneous visions, symbols, patterns of sacred geometry, or fleeting memories that do not belong to this lifetime alone. Others sense presences, guidance, or a sudden knowing that transcends logic. These experiences are not random. They emerge from deep, subconscious, and transpersonal layers where the soul stores its history. What surfaces feels recognized rather than learned, as if remembrance is occurring rather than discovery. Yet, amid this intensity, there is an unexpected and profound stillness. Beneath the racing heart and trembling body lies a calm so deep it feels anchoring, A quiet inner voice seems to whisper, "You are home." In this state, the illusion of separation fades. The constant sense of you and me softens into something unified and expansive. Duality loosens its grip, and for a brief but unforgettable moment, love is no longer something you feel, it is something you are. Once this current has been touched, life does not return to its previous shape. Perception shifts. Prior definitions of love, connection, and identity feel incomplete. You have encountered the infinite within yourself, and in doing so, the infinite has encountered you. This experience leaves a permanent imprint, not as longing or obsession, but as a deep internal knowing. Something eternal has been activated, and the soul remembers its vastness. Before we move into the next stage of this journey, take a moment to pause and breathe with what you've just heard. Notice what stirred inside you, whether it was recognition, emotion, or a quiet sense of knowing that words cannot fully explain. Experiences like this are not meant to be rushed past. They ask for reflection. If this description resonated with you, if you have ever felt that electric awakening or sensed something ancient move within you, you are not alone. I invite you to share your thoughts or your experience in the comments, or simply type, "I recognize the energy within me." This small act of acknowledgement grounds the insight and opens the door to what comes next. Section 2. The unspoken telepathic bond, making love without words. In a true twin flame connection, silence is never vacant or lifeless. It is saturated with meaning, layered with awareness, and alive with communication that exists beyond spoken language. What appears quiet on the surface is, in truth, a living exchange, one that does not rely on sound, explanation, or clarification. Here, silence becomes a shared field where understanding flows effortlessly. You do not need to ask what your twin feels or desires, because the knowing arrives before the question ever forms. Their emotional state moves through you as naturally as breath, registering not in thought, but in sensation. A subtle shift in your chest, a sudden tenderness, a quiet ache or warmth, these are not imagined responses. They are emotional echoes, reverberations between two nervous systems that recognize each other at a level deeper than conscious awareness. Even in physical absence, their presence remains unmistakable, steady and intimate, as though the bond itself refuses to obey distance. This experience is not intuition alone, nor is it emotional projection. It is soul-to-soul communication, an ancient form of connection that predates language, culture, and identity. It is the memory of unity resurfacing, the remembrance of a time when separation did not exist, when consciousness moved as one across dimensions before choosing individual form. In moments like these, the mind falls silent because it is no longer needed. Knowing replaces thinking. Looking into your twin's eyes often feels like crossing a threshold. Time softens, then dissolves. The present moment stretches open, and memory awakens not as images or stories, but as recognition. You do not recognize them by name, history, or personality. You recognize them by resonance. Something within you responds instinctively, as though a long-forgotten truth has suddenly been reactivated. This is not attraction, it is recall. Many twin flames report shared sensations that arise simultaneously, even when separated by vast distance, a sudden rush of warmth without cause, a wave of longing that arrives uninvited. Emotion surfacing with no external trigger. These experiences often defy logic, yet they carry a clarity that feels undeniable. The body responds before the mind can interfere, because the bond communicates directly through the nervous system and the heart. For some, the connection continues in dreams or altered states of awareness, where the boundaries of the physical world no longer apply. In these spaces, communication unfolds without words. Connection occurs without touch. Love is expressed without separation. These encounters feel vivid, intimate, and deeply real, not because they are imagined, but because they operate on a level where imagination is unnecessary. This is not fantasy, wishful thinking, or emotional dependency. It is a sacred dialogue between two halves of the same divine flame, a conversation that does not need sound, a love that does not need proof, and a bond that speaks most clearly when nothing is said at all. Section 3. The merging of souls, feeling like one being. There comes a moment in the twin flame journey when all familiar boundaries begin to dissolve. The edges of identity soften. The sense of being separate, contained, or defined by form gradually fades, giving way to something far more expansive than the self you once believed you were. In this moment, consciousness shifts from individuality into unity, and the experience is both disorienting and deeply familiar. In this sacred merging, there is no longer a distinction between you and the other. The language of me and them loses relevance. What remains is a shared field of awareness, a singular current of love and light moving through two bodies but one consciousness. It feels less like joining another person and more like remembering a state of being that existed long before separation was introduced. Many describe this experience as a sensation of leaving the physical body altogether. Time appears to collapse, and the world as you know it becomes distant or irrelevant. What replaces it is a timeless realm marked by warmth, weightlessness, and an overwhelming sense of infinite energy. Some perceive intricate patterns of sacred geometry unfolding in waves of light, as though the universe itself is revealing its underlying design. Others experience sudden flashes of recognition, memories of shared lifetimes, parallel existences, or encounters across dimensions that feel ancient and undeniable. What gives this merging its profound power is not desire, intensity, or emotional hunger. It is remembrance. A deep, quiet recognition rises from the soul, whispering without sound, "I know you. I have always known you." This knowing does not originate in the mind or the heart. Alone it emerges from the core of being, where truth exists without explanation. The experience feels inevitable, as though it has been patiently waiting beyond time for this precise moment of awareness. In this state, separation reveals itself as an illusion rather than a reality. The long periods of distance, longing, and searching suddenly make sense, not as punishment or delay, but as preparation. The universe did not orchestrate this reunion for romance alone. It brought these two aspects of the same soul together to awaken consciousness, to collapse false identities, and to restore remembrance of wholeness. This merging is a return home, though not to a physical place or a past life. It is a return to wholeness itself. You do not feel close to your twin flame in this moment. You do not feel bonded or connected in the usual sense. You become them. And within that unity, a profound truth settles gently but permanently. You were never incomplete. You were always whole, temporarily remembering yourself through another. Imagine two musicians who learned the same melody long before they ever met, each practicing alone for years without realizing the song was shared. When they finally sit across from one another and begin to play, something extraordinary happens. They do not need sheet music, cues, or conversation. Their timing aligns instinctively, their rhythms merge, and the music seems to play itself through them rather than being produced by them. In that moment, neither musician leads nor follows. The sound becomes one seamless expression, as if a single source is moving through two instruments. This is how the merging of souls feels in a twin flame awakening. You do not lose yourself, and you do not gain another. Instead, the deeper truth emerges that the separation was only a period of solo practice, and the reunion is the remembrance that the song was always one. Section 4. The activation of deep healing emotional triggers and release. As a psychologist who has spent decades studying both the human psyche and the deeper currents of spiritual transformation, I can say this with certainty. Twin flame intimacy is not merely an experience of closeness or desire. It functions as a sacred catalyst for profound inner change. Beneath the surface of attraction, a powerful spiritual fire is ignited, one that moves with precision into the hidden chambers of the soul, illuminating what has long remained unseen. Your twin flame does not reflect only your light, your beauty, or your highest potential. They also mirror the parts of you that were buried for survival. Old emotional wounds begin to surface. Long suppressed grief rises without warning. Tears may fall without a clear story or memory attached to them. This can feel confusing, even destabilizing. especially when the intensity of the connection seems to unlock emotions you believed were already resolved. Yet, these moments are not signs of emotional weakness or psychological regression. They are invitations, precise, purposeful invitations to heal. What emerges is not random. Fear, shame, abandonment, grief, and unprocessed loss come forward because the nervous system finally senses enough safety to release them. In some cases, the emotions feel older than this lifetime, as though trauma carried across generations or even lifetimes is being called to the surface for resolution. From a psychological perspective, this is integration. From a spiritual perspective, it is transmutation. This form of love does not exist to soothe the ego or maintain comfort. It exists to refine the soul. It burns through illusion, attachment, and false identity. The ego resists because it fears dissolution, but the soul recognizes liberation. Pain, in this process, is not punishment. It is the portal through which freedom becomes possible. What once felt overwhelming begins to feel purposeful as awareness deepens. Intimacy, then, becomes ceremony. Every emotional release becomes a sacred act of remembering who you are beneath conditioning and survival. What is released no longer needs to be carried. What is healed no longer controls your choices. In this way, rebirth is not symbolic. It is lived, embodied, and irreversible. This is why true twin flame love changes everything, not because it promises ease, but because it awakens the soul. And once awakened, the soul cannot return to sleep. If you have stayed with this message until now, take a moment to pause and feel what is moving within you. Notice what this reflection has stirred: memories, emotions, realizations, or quiet confirmations you may not have had language for before. This is not just information, it is recognition. If you feel called, share your experience in the comments. Your story may be the mirror someone else needs to feel less alone on their path. And if words feel heavy, you can simply type this affirmation as a signal to yourself and the universe. I allow healing to move through me now. Your presence here matters, your journey is valid, and what you are integrating is unfolding exactly as it should. Section 5. The post-union glow, a radiance others can see. After true union, something profound and unmistakable begins to shift, not on the surface alone, but at the very core of your being. Your presence changes before you ever try to explain it. Your energy expands quietly yet powerfully, as if an inner light has been switched on and can no longer be dimmed. You may not immediately recognize it in yourself, but others do. They feel it the moment you enter a room. Before you speak, before you act, before you share a word, something about you registers as different. You appear lighter, not because life has suddenly become effortless, but because you are no longer carrying what never belonged to you. There is a vitality in your eyes, a calm confidence in your movements, a subtle luminosity that cannot be manufactured or rehearsed. This is not excitement or performance, it is coherence. Your inner world has come into alignment, and the body reflects what the soul has remembered. At an energetic level, your vibration stabilizes at a higher frequency. The chakras begin to communicate with one another rather than compete for attention. Intuition sharpens, not as a mystical novelty, but as a grounded form of perception. You sense truth more quickly. You recognize misalignment without needing proof. Creativity begins to move through you naturally, not as pressure to produce, but as a desire to express what has awakened within. Ideas flow because resistance has dissolved. Life itself starts responding differently to you. Opportunities appear with less struggle. Conversations open doors instead of closing them. Synchronicities increase, not to impress you, but to guide you. Purpose becomes clearer not because you suddenly know every answer, but because you now trust your internal compass. You stop forcing direction and begin responding to resonance. What is meant for you finds you more easily because you are no longer fragmented. This glow, however, is not a reward. From a psychological and spiritual perspective, it is a responsibility. You are being asked to stabilize a higher frequency, not occasionally but consistently, to embody it rather than chase it, to live in a way that honors the truth you have integrated. Expansion without grounding can collapse. And so the post-union phase calls for maturity, presence, and integrity. You are no longer learning who you are learning how to live as who you are. In this state, you become a beacon, not of fantasy or idealized romance, but of something far more enduring. You radiate a form of love that is steady, self-possessed, and timeless. Eternal love is not loud, it is recognizable. It does not demand attention, yet it draws it. I once observed a woman who had lived quietly for years, feeling unseen and uncertain of her value. After union, nothing external dramatically changed. Her environment remained familiar. Her responsibilities stayed the same, yet she awakened. She began to create without fear. She laughed without apology. She allowed herself to be visible without trying to impress. She shined not because the world changed, but because she did. That is the post-union glow. Not perfection, but authenticity revealed. Not acquisition, but remembrance. The soul no longer searching, only expressing what it has always been. Twin flame intimacy is not something the mind can fully explain, because it does not originate in the mind. It is a meeting of memory and truth, a convergence of love and awareness that transcends what most people have been taught about connection. What unfolds within sacred union is not indulgence or fantasy, it is revelation. It is the soul stepping forward to recognize itself through another. These 5 truths remind us that twin flame intimacy is never confined to the physical body. It is awakening, where dormant parts of the self come alive. It is healing, where wounds once hidden are finally met with compassion rather than fear. And above all, it is remembrance, the quiet yet powerful realization that separation was never the truth, only a lesson that prepared you for return. In this space, nothing is accidental. Every touch carries intention. Every pause holds meaning. Every shared breath dissolves layers of illusion that once convinced you that love had limits or conditions. The sacred bedroom becomes more than a place, it becomes a portal. A threshold where fear softens into surrender, where past pain is met with presence, and where 2 souls remember unity without effort or force. If something within you stirred as you listened, trust that recognition. You are not imagining this. You are not alone. What you have experienced, or are beginning to experience, is sacred by nature. It does not need validation from the world to be real. It only asks to be honored. Take a moment now to anchor this truth. Leave a comment with the words, "The sacred bedroom is where souls remember." And if one of these revelations touched you more deeply than the others, share which one resonated most. Your reflection may be the mirror someone else has been searching for. If this video brought clarity, confirmation, or peace, support the message by liking and sharing it with those who may need to hear it. Subscribe to stay connected as we continue exploring the deeper layers of awakening, union, and soul remembrance. And when you feel ready, the next chapter of this journey is waiting for you below. Trust the path unfolding before you. Your soul already knows the way,